So there are a couple of places we can go to give us a bit more confidence that the information we're consuming is of a credible nature and would pass the CRAP test. Now, this isn't for everything. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be Googling around and looking at government websites and industry reports and all that kind of stuff. There's absolutely tons of good information that is not in these sources that I'm about to show you, but these are two pretty useful ways to find some of the information that's going to be useful to you, especially the academic research. So if you're looking for industry research, for applied research, you should still be looking at governments. You should be looking at industry associations. If you're interested in hotels and research on hotels, you could definitely look at the hotel industry associations, for example, and looking in local media as well, and finding local media sources. If you're interested in a particular place or a particular area, local media is always a good place to go. But if you want to look for academic research, here are two really good resources that I hope you're familiar with already, but just in case. So of course, the first one is Ryerson Library. You are paying a lot of money to attend school, and some of that money goes to the Ryerson Library that pays for subscriptions to journals and textbooks and all that kind of stuff that you have access to while you're a student that otherwise would cost a lot of money to access. So you can come to the website, library.ryerson.ca. I would recommend, well, you could start by just doing a general search, but the advanced search is pretty useful. So here you can say, you can decide, well, I want to look for books that have, let's see, within the full text, I want them to have tourism festivals, right? So somewhere in the text, it has to have the words tourism and festivals. It also has to have, let's say, destination in the title. And I can add a new search bar here, so I could add as many of these as I want. And I could say, but not something in the title that is, let's say, Canada. I don't know, I'm making this up, right? But you can be really specific about exactly what you want to look for. You can also then say, well, I only want stuff that's super recent, so from the last 12 months. These are pretty generic, but this is quite a useful one here. Limit to items with full text online. Because right now you're not going to be going to the library. Probably, well, you might be going to the library, but you might be just wanting to find online text as well. And there is a lot of information online. Many of the textbooks that the library has are online as well. So I would always click this one for right now, and then we do a search. And so it's going to give us all of those. And so it's going to give us all of those things that meet those criteria. And then we can decide to be perhaps more specific or less specific, and we could change some ands to some ors and so on. And we can really kind of break down and narrow down into some information and some resources that might answer the very specific questions that we have. The other great thing about the library, the Ryerson Library, is that they have somebody there on a chat service, so you can ask them questions. And every time I've used them, they've been super quick, super helpful, and really helped me out. So if you're stuck on how to access something or find something, or you thought you were going to get something and it didn't quite work, the Ask a Librarian service is amazing. So just go to, I just Google Ask a Librarian. And there we go. You just click on that link. I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to start a chat with the librarian, but they're open, pretty good hours, most days of the week. Use them. They're there. They're really useful and really helpful. Other great resource is Google Scholar. So just like Google, it's pretty intuitive. It doesn't have as much information, I don't think, as the library. It doesn't give access to the textbooks in the same way. But it's another resource to use to help you get to some of that information that might be useful. A really important thing first is that you associate your Google Scholar with Ryerson. So you're going to go over here and you're going to click Settings, and you're going to do Library Links, and you're going to search for Ryerson, and you're going to check Ryerson University, and you're going to save. And so now when we look for something, let's look for tourism festivals, for example. There we go. And so what it can do is well, it gives us 148,000 results, which is probably too many, but then we could change the range. So let's look at anything that's only been published since 2020. We can also do an advanced search. So we go over here and click advanced search, and similar to the way it was in the library, we can be more specific about things that we're interested in. So tourism festivals, let's say, with at least tourism and destination and Canada, for example. Great, and then we narrow the results a little bit and so on. Now, to access this information, if you see the PDF sign, that's probably going to take you to a link that is open source, that you're going to be able to download the PDF, whether you're a Ryerson student or not. But if you see the Check the Ryerson Library, let's try this. So I've opened this in a new tab. And so it actually takes me to the library website, the Ryerson Library website. I'm going to have to click this link, have to log in. You may have to use your Google Authenticator app. And then you come to a page a bit like this, and it might not be exactly like this because the different journals might have different pages and different ways of presenting the information. But somewhere you're going to see PDF or download as or something like that. And then you can download the PDF, and there you go. A couple other tricks about Google Scholar. So we can see that it has cited by. So cited by means that how many other resources have used this information in their own work to cite it. And of course, something that has been cited more often, it's a sign that it's more accepted by the community, that this is useful information and good quality. So it's a bit of a measure. But we also have to be a bit careful that because this is only since 2020, and so there's not really been a lot of time for other people to have read this and then put it into their own work. So it's an indication, but it's not the perfect measure of telling us whether something is good or not. If we went back to 2016, perhaps, we can see that some things have more citations than others. So that might be something. If we just said anytime, we can see that some sources have been referenced many times, cited many times, but they're from a long time ago. So this is credible, but it's also not very current. So we've got to be careful about that too. We can then click on these links. So these are books. Let's stay away from books for a second. Let's try this one. So we're going to click on cited by. And now here are all those 325 other pieces of work that have cited this. And so now I can search within these 325 and say, well, is there anyone that says anything about Toronto, for example? And there are 34 of those articles that have Toronto. So it's just a way to narrow down your research and find papers that are of interest to you. We can also, we can also go back and we can click on, perhaps you read this book and you really like D. Picard. Maybe it's a really interesting book. And so you can click on D. Picard and you can see his profile, and now you can see all of his work. So maybe there's something that he wrote that you really like, and you can go and find more information about that. And of course, the other really useful thing about Google Scholar is for journal articles, and we can tell if it's a journal article because, well, first of all, that says a book, so that's not a journal article, that's different. But often, Journal of Sustainable Tourism is an academic journal. We can click on this Cite button, and then we can just copy the APA reference, and we can copy that and paste it into our own work in the references section at the end of the text. So it's really important to keep a record of all of those things because that's going to be really useful to you when you come to finish your paper. Now, this tool doesn't work very well for books. They just haven't got it quite right. But for journal articles, this is really good. Of course, if you have a book that you want an APA reference, you're going to Google that. APA reference. And there are a million resources. Al Purdue is a great one. And it just gives you exactly what you need to do for a book. So that's the format, that's the structure, and there's an example of what you need to do. All right, so play around with that. Good luck. We'll see you in a minute.